It's telling me I have excellent connection now. I reset it. We'll see how this goes. Welcome, everyone, to the 2025 FIVB Men's Volleyball World Championship Preview. My name is Everett, and today we're going to preview the World Championships, and we're going to talk about some volleyball. Now, I know it's already started. If this is the second time you're watching this preview with me, thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. I apologize. It's saying I have excellent connection now. I've literally unplugged everything else, and if I just lagged again, I'm gonna hurt someone. I don't know what's up. I have been a little bit frustrated over the past few days as I had some leakage in my walls, and my landlord had to come and replace the hot water heater, which really put me behind because we had construction people coming in and out, and I had no internet. And punch your wall again and fix it again. You're Piosian, if I pronounce that properly, you are right. Now, Luke, let's prepare this internet prayer circle. I have a feeling that a good way to pray for the internet is actually to hit like. If you like this video, you will actually help me pray for the internet. So I would appreciate if all of you did that. Today, we're going to preview the entirety of the Men's World Championships. I know that we're going to be watching. I know that we're already into it, but we'll see how this goes. Okay. Your voice and sound are out of sync, but it's not that deep. Yeah. I hope it's not that deep because, to be honest, I'm about to punt everything right now. Absolutely everything. All right. So before we break down some of the pools, I do also, if you watch this before, I will be starting from the top because I don't know what you saw, what you didn't saw. And then for everyone else who's going to be watching this later, they don't know that this is actually the second time that we've gone live with this. Okay. Anna, appreciate your prayers. And we're going to jump right into it. And first and foremost, before we get into breaking down the tournament ahead of us, we're going to break down a little bit of the history. Now, there is a very clear delineation within this tournament post 1982. Previous to 1982, volleyball was very communist, very, very communist. The Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, it was all dominated behind the Iron Curtain. And then we have the Americans winning in 86. And then since then, we've really only had three teams in competition: Italy, Brazil, and Poland. Poland, one of those few teams that actually sits on either side with the championship there back in 1974. And the reality is that not much has changed. Not much has changed since 1990. As in the past 25 years, the three teams have dominated are three of the teams that are really, really favorites to be winning this tournament, alongside of two-time defending champs France. But we'll talk about them a little bit later once we get into their pool. So it is maybe not the parity that we see on the women's side with the top end with all of these different teams. However, I do think that when you look at, the parity across this tournament, I think that there's much less disparity between the top teams and the bottom teams, right? Every pool has a favorite, maybe except for Pool A, especially with Iran missing some of their best players. I'm going to keep this one. I don't know. It keeps talking to me about keyframes, and there is currently no keyframes happening right now with my shit going on. So someone's gonna get hurt, and it's probably going to be me. Okay. So when we look at some of these pools, every single one of these pools is a favorite, but the race for second, I think, is going to be really exciting in quite a few of them. If not all of them. Okay. Now, without any further ado, because I'm frustrated as shit by all of this anyways, let's just jump into it. Now, first and foremost, with Pool A, I'm still better than May. Don't make me laugh here, okay? I don't want to get myself in some more trouble. All right. But looking at Pool A, I saw some people in the Discord complaining, oh, why does the Philippines get the #1 seed? Have you guys ever watched an international tournament? whether it's volleyball or anything else. That is always the way that happens, except for hockey for some reason. I'm pretty sure they don't do the number one seed to the home team, but that's also because Canada hosts like the majority of the hockey events. When I have no problem with the Philippines getting that number one seed, especially with their fans and the way that they host everything. Pool A is going to be very, very interesting, right? Philippines. Now, if you want to break down their team, there is not much to break down. And if you watch the game this morning, that's going to be pretty much it. Brian Bogunius is legit. He's a high flyer. He swings hard. He's got decent ball control. For all of those reasons, you're going to be heading to he's going to be heading to Osaka Blue Tion this year. But love to see the Filipino team there. They had so much support from their fans this morning, but I doubt we're going to see much more of that from them. Now moving forward from what I mean, I think Iran is still really, really good, right? I did talk about Velasco and his ability to run this team, to build this team up back in the early 2010s in the last episode of the women's tournament. And Iran since then has been outstanding, right? At the U21 level, Iran has won 3 of the past 4 U21 World Championships, which is absolutely massive and cannot be discredited enough. Okay, so Iran normally I think would be the number one seed in this pool, and I mean they got pretty lucky, but without a mean, I'm not entirely sure how deep of a run they can make it. But they still have a super talented roster, right? Bardat Sadiat is going to be jumping into the opposite position. And in terms of left side groups with Morteza and Esfandia and Poria, that's a really, really strong group. And I'm going to be interested to see how they can compete once they get into the round of 16. But this group that they have here should be more than enough to win Pool A, especially when you're looking at the rest of the teams. Now, the second best team you would look at should be Egypt. Egypt historically is going to be a little bit decent. They did win bronze at the 2024 Challenger Cup and went to the 2024 Paris Olympics, where they unfortunately didn't win a match. However, there has been 2 big blows to this Egyptian team coming into this tournament. Now, first and foremost, you have a weird situation with their captain and middle blocker, Mohamed Abdel, getting kicked off the squad for behavior reasons, which is wild. That's stuff that you hear at like at the university or the club level, not usually at the international level. So it is kind of what it is, but I think that the other thing that the big other missing player for Egypt in this one is going to have to be Reda Heikel, who was their top scorer in 2024, both the Challenger Cup and the Wagner Memorial, and in the Olympics in 2024. Without him as the opposite, I do think that Egypt is really, really going to struggle. And the team that is going to be able to capitalize that is none other than their biggest African champs or biggest African competition in Tunisia. Now, Tunisia is the country that developed Wassim Bentara, and since he's trying to become Polish, he will not be competing for this team. He has not renounced his citizenship, but has renounced his nationality for volleyball in Tunisia. And he will be looking to play for Poland in the future, even though they've already naturalized other players. Apparently, according to the FIVB, once you've played for 2 seasons, it doesn't matter. You're no longer a naturalized player. You are now a member of that team. So interesting rules there by the FIVB, but there's nothing we can do about it. But I ever saw pro volleyball in person back in 2006 at the Anton Ferlani Cup in Ottawa. My first game that I saw was Canada versus Tunisia. And, you know, we saw them be pretty good this morning against the Philippines as well. And while the 2023 African Nations Cup, if that's what we want to call it, I know that's what they call it in soccer, but I don't know if it's if that's actually what it's called in volleyball. Back in 2023 was only the second time that they failed to medal for an event that they attended, where they got upset by Cameroon 3-1 in the quarterfinals. And I do think that this Tunisian team is ready to think of to be one of the better teams in this pool, and could potentially upset their continental rivals in Egypt to be able to make it to the finals. Okay, so I'm kind of expecting Iran to be number one in this pool, with Tunisia to be at number two. But past that, I'm not expecting many teams. Maybe Iran can win a first round matchup, depending who they play, but we will be looking at that afterwards. And regardless, it will be. I think it should be Iran number one, Tunisia number two. Bentara is a pool, anyways. Yeah, exactly. Bentara is now technically a poll. And speaking of Poland, they should be the top team in Pool B. And not only they should be the top team in Pool B, I, amongst with everyone, is expecting Poland to be there all the way at the end into the semifinals and potentially the finals. Like, this is a team that has the deepest roster in volleyball. If anyone wants to argue with that, you're dumb. That's the only way to put it. And I think that this team has one goal and one goal only, and that is gold. All right. For a few reasons. I mean, this is a country that loves volleyball, and I said the deepest team in volleyball right now, but also there's so much legacy on the line here, not only for everyone else, but for two people in particular. First and foremost, Wilfredo Leão. So many people consider him the GOAT, one of the greatest players of all time. And yet when you look at his major accomplishments and major trophies, they all happen on the club side. And there's not much that's happened on the international side. And of course, that's from him being naturalizing from Cuba and coming over. He only has one appearance at the World Championships, and that's all the way back in 2010, where his Cuban roster that was absolutely loaded made it all the way to the finals and lost to Brazil in the finals. Now, the man that they beat in the semifinals, Nikola Grbić, is also chasing his first ever World Championships. He's attended 7 as both player and coach, and probably and has never won one. He's medaled, but has never won a gold medal, mostly because of his now player in Wilfredo Leão. So not only is one of the best and proudest volleyball nations gunning for that gold, and they have the roster to do it, but they have the meaning to do it behind it. It's always way easier to say, hey, we want to go do it for this player. We want to go do it for our coach. They deserve it. And I think I think that's completely valid, right? So when you're looking at this Polish roster too, they do have a few, not holes, but they are missing a few guys that we would expect. Tuszpiniak and Aleksander Śliwka will both not be participating for Poland, but as I said, with the deepest roster in volleyball, that doesn't really matter. You know, on the left side, you still got guys like Semeniuk, Bartosz Bednarz, and absolutely legendary 37-year-old Bartosz Kurek. And, of course, Kevin Sasak, who had such an amazing season this year with Lublin. So I think that only Poland can lose this tournament. Andrea, you're 100% right. Like, Poland can absolutely lose this tournament. Actually, well, I don't know. We'll talk about that. But when you look at how everything is going on this team, the strength that they have down the middle, like even without Bieniek, you still have Kokonowski, you still have Huber, and then they're going with Jakub Nowak and Jakubczak. That's really, really strong. And I think that Poland is going to be making a really deep run, and they should be able to run through this pool pretty easily. But after that, other than Qatar, Qatar, thank you very much for participating. Have a cookie on the way out. I know that you guys were at the Challenger Cup a few years ago. I know you're doing some really good things in the beach volleyball side with Sharif and Ahmed. Just not happening for you guys yet on the indoor side of things. But the next two are going to be really interesting because the Dutch are really limping into this tournament without their top scorers in their country of Namir Abdelaziz or with Wouter Tamat. So you're going to have pretty much the exact same roster that we saw at the 2025 VNL, which resulted in only one win and the Netherlands getting relegated. So, you're still going to be expecting Michel Ayi and, Benny Tweenstra, maybe Fabian Plak down the middle to carry this team. But can it be enough to take down Romania? Romania, you can look at it a few ways. On the surface, it looks like they had a fantastic European Golden League. They went 5-1 in group play. However, there is some questions about, the quality of teams and how hard that they were going in the the European Golden League. Unfortunately, due to how things worked out, they didn't make it to that final round. But led by former Zaksa guy and now newly Skra Belchatov guy, Daniel Chitigoy, I do think that in this current setup, with the Netherlands being as rough as they are at the moment, there is a potential there for Romania to steal a win, to sneak into the round of 16 and get a lot of big points. Okay, but still, Poland's going to be number one. It's going to be mixed between either the Dutch or Romania in second place. And let's be honest, whoever they play in the round of 16 will have a pretty easy go at things. Moving forward to Pool C, I think that this one is one of the more straightforward pools, but it will produce some entertaining matches overall, because even Korea, who's the lesser ranked team in this pool, I think can have a bit of a shot. Looking at the French team, they are the two-time defending Olympic champions, but that success has never really translated to the World Championships. In fact, as Andrea is pointing out, they've never made a final in the World Championships, and they only have one all-time medal, and that's a lone bronze all the way back in 2022. Now, this group did kind of kick things off, with Engapeth and Antonin Rousier and a few of those other guys all the way back in 2014 when they finished fourth, but that still wasn't a medal. Now, they are led by one of the greatest of all time. Andrea Gianni is one of a handful of players, of one of only 5 players who have won 3 World Championship gold medals. And they will be looking to do the same here, right? They're the 2-time defending Olympic champions. No one has been able to be both Olympic and world champions since Brazil all the way back in 2006, right? Back when they were changing the game. And the French, they brought the roster. They brought absolutely everyone. The only player that they do not have on their roster for this year is Kevin Tilley, who, after some friendlies against Serbia, decided to take the time off for his family. That's interesting to me. I would think that Tilley, after guys like Klevno and Engapeth, might be one of the first ones off the bench. This French team is really, really good. They will be missing Stéphane Boyer as well, but it's hard to expect Boyer to be there with how good guys like Cheninese, with how good like guys like Théophore has been. So France is looking to be really, really strong. They even brought back Engapeth, and now I know. Are we muted? Still muted? Maybe try restarting it. I know that, some people have been criticizing Engapeth in the pre-tournament events. And I know that some people have been criticizing Engapeth during the pre-tournament events, but this is one of the guys who is always one of the most clutch at the biggest moments of volleyball. And we've come to expect that, and I don't expect this one to be any different, right? He wants to solidify himself as one of the best volleyball players of all time, and you got to win some world championships to be able to do that. So France is still one of the big names. You're still bringing in guys like Klevno and Cheninese, Le Goff, Jean Patry, of course, were being brought in on the right side, led by both Brizard and Taniuti. And then you have arguably the best libero in the game in Jania Grebenikov. Right? They're not just looking for their first ever world championship gold. They're looking to cement their legacy as one of the best teams ever in the history of volleyball. And now, when you look at the rest of this pool too, Argentina bringing in another one of their legends. Luciano De Cecco, the maestro himself, will be joining this team, which always makes Argentina more dangerous. And I've been a little bit disappointed, let's say, with how Argentina has played over the past year or so since they won the 2023 South American Championships. They had such a great Tokyo Olympics, won the bronze, then they won their first ever South American Championships and knocked Brazil off for the first time ever back in 2023. And then after that, I thought it was just a bit of a lackluster VNL in 2024 and Paris Olympics. However, adding Klevno to this roster is absolutely massive, and it cannot be understated. Of course, he will be missing two of his most favorite targets, Facundo Conte, who retired from the national team after the Olympics, and also Bruno Lima, who retired from the national team earlier this year. So those are two guys that have really carried the load. So Argentina is going to be looking at guys like Luciano Polonsky, who led them in scoring during the VNL. Of course, Augustin Lozer, who I think is one of the best blockers in the game right now. And then on the right side, it's going to have to be either Gomez, if Mendes is going to go down the road of like Armoa Morel, or go for more of like a Luciano Vicentin and go for the Luciano pairs on the left side. But regardless of what they're going to be picking for this one, I do believe that Argentina, especially with the addition with Luciano De Cecco in the setter position, that Argentina should be one of the favorites. And, the rest of this pool isn't too bad either. Finland coming off a win in the CEV Golden League this summer. Luca Martila should be their guy this year, who played for Monza this year. And we actually saw some really good things happening at the junior level right now for Finland. So Finland, I think, is a team that, if this tournament was longer and a little bit bigger, might be able to ruffle some feathers and create some upsets. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that in this tournament here. Well, Korea is another team that, in the history of volleyball, has such a strong volleyball history, but they have been on a downward spiral for quite a bit time now. If you look back to the 2023 eighth in that championship, so I'm expecting them to finish last, no doubt about it. Oh my goodness, I don't know why none of this shit is working. I'm about to get real mad about all of this. Stop doing this. Okay, and yeah, Pool C, France should be number 1, and Argentina should be number 2. Korea has ever been up there for men. I thought it was the Korean men have never been as good as the Korean women. Like, the Korean women did have a really, really good 2010s, but have fallen off since then. The Korean men will never forget it. Okay, but yeah, it should be France number 1, Argentina number 2 in Pool C. Pretty simple. Now, Pool D, I think, is another one that's fairly straightforward. However, I don't think that the seeding is going to stick. I do think that Cuba is actually the top team in this pool. Now, when you think of USA Volleyball, you always think of medals and you think of legacy, but they've really only won 3 all time. Their first and only gold medal was back in '86 when Karch was leading the team. And then they got a bronze in 2018. And while this current version of American men's volleyball is really, really good, they're going to be missing some firepower. They're going to be missing a lot of their guys. While they do add arguably the best setter in the world to their roster in Micah Christensen, he's not getting much help in terms of firepower. There's going to be no Matt Anderson, no TJ DeFalco, no Thomas Jischke, no Aaron Russell, no David Smith, and no Max Holt. So when you look at who their guys were from the 2024 Paris Olympics, you've really only got Chris. You've got a lot of youth, especially on the left side. On the left side, it's going to have to be between Cooper Robertson, Jacob Pasteur, and Ethan Champlin. I've said it before, I really like the way that Ethan Champlin plays. I also thought that Cooper Robinson did himself, a ton of good with how he played over the course of the VNL. And I thought for a long time that Jacob Pasteur has a really live arm and hits at an international level. So all 3 of those guys is going to be really important for them to be able to get some time. And whereas in the opposite, we're still unsure if Gabby Garcia, who left Puerto Rico, and naturalized to be an American, even though that's an interesting political statement there, but by that man, is going to be the real deal. Getting to see him play in person in Chicago this year, I thought that he played really, really good against us. And then some lukewarm performances about that, but the same thing can be said about Kyle Ensing. At certain points, he's looked awesome. Like, look at the way that he finished the year with Sevierci coming in off the bench because of some injuries and really did well, but he's never really been able to establish himself as that next guy in the American system. So with how young this team is, it's leaving a massive opportunity for not only Cuba, but then also we're going to talk about how there's like the bracket that they're in is really wide open for a number of reasons, and it's going to be really interesting. We'll talk about a little bit later. But moving on to Cuba, the Americans' familiar NORCECA foe. I hate to admit it. I really hate to admit it. And if you were here for the last live stream that we tried to start, I did tell Ronnie that if Cuba beat the U.S., that I would bring him on the show. And I actually think it's going to happen, right? Cuba was a massive surprise this year at the VNL, mostly because Marlon Yant looked healthy, right? He looked healthy. He looked rejuvenated. He was playing in Russia, so I don't know what really happened there, but with Marlon Yant, but he looked the best he's ever looked over the past of this VNL. Was one of the top scorers of the VNL this year and the top scorer for Cuba. But then you're adding a few things. You've got Jose Masso on the right side, who just brings a lot of length and a lot of scoring power, so you're able to even some things out, and it's not crazy Herrera out there who you're not entirely sure what you're going to be able to get. And then also, I really, really like Julio Gomez at setter. I think he makes good decisions. I think he is gritty, and he brings a little bit of attitude to this position where guys like Taboada or even Thorndike just have never been able to do that for me in terms of this Cuban team. And then also, you've got a lot of strength for Cuba down the middle. No, Herrera is not on the roster. I'm pretty sure. A lot of strength for Cuba down the middle. You've obviously got the absolute GOAT in Robert Landy Simon down the middle. I don't think there's any denying that he is the best player of all time, middle player of all time. And then you've got the homie, Javier Concepcion and Romy Alonso, who I think is really underrated coming off the bench. So with the U.S. being so shorthanded, I think this is a massive opportunity for Cuba to keep going on that momentum, and that's great. They can do really, really good this summer, and then they're going to blow it next summer. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about Cuba. I am really, really, really excited to be able to see what this Cuban team can do. I think they have some potential. And yes, I'm aware that, well, that's a little bit interesting there, Lucas Sky, because he's not actually technically. Moving on through this pool, I do think that Portugal is a bit of a quality team. You always need quality setting to be able to get the job done. And Portugal has one of the best, right? One of the most underrated setters in the world, in Miguel Tavares, and what he's been able to do in the Plus League over the past number of years has been super impressive. He's a high flyer, he's athletic, but the rest of the roster around him just might not be able to do it. I am interested to see them play. Alexander Ferreira is going to be probably one of their guys. It looks like in some of the pre-tournament events that they've been throwing him onto the right side, which kind of makes sense because then the final, both twice, I think they lost 3-1 and then 3-0 to Canada's B team in the Pan Am Cup this summer. So they should probably just grab a cookie on their way out. Okay, moving forward to Group E, Pool E, and I talked earlier about how the bracket for the Americans is going to be really interesting because Pool D and Pool E are going to be crossing over. So USA and Cuba, however they go 1-2, are going to be crossing over here with Pool E. And Pool E is really, really interesting, mostly because the number one team in this pool, Slovenia, is a little bit shorthanded in this one. Now, this is a team that finished fourth at the 2022 World Championships, and yes, you can kind of cry foul because they were one of the hosts, and this allowed them to really get an easy road all the way to the without their top scorer from the VNL, without the Rock Mozic, and also missing Clement Chebul. This is now a team that is going to be. This is now a team that's going to struggle to score. There's no doubt about it, right? Ropret, not sure he's quite the setter that we're expecting it to be. So now it's really up to know if they're going to be able to really carry the load for Slovenia in this one. Holy fuck. Why would that be a an advantage for Slovenia to be playing Chile first? I don't know. I just think that Slovenia is going to be really, really hard fought without Chebul or specifically the Mozic. So yeah, I think it's going to be tough, and especially because there's two teams chomping at the bit to get them. Germany specifically, Germany adding Gregor Grozer to their lineup is really like is a huge thing. Because it just adds a little bit depth, right? We know Philipp Jon was one of the top scorers in the VNL. I'm still not 100% sure that he should be their guy. However, Grozer is a guy that people will play for. Grozer is a guy that people want to play for. And I think that Grozer, this being his last tournament, he's going to be 40 years old. He's going to want to go off with a bang. And as one of the hardest hitters ever, the Hungarian Hammer, I know, is going to have a good tournament. But when you look at the rest of their team around them, they are going to be missing Tila at the setting position. So it's probably going to be Jan Zimmerman who's going to be dishing the butter. But they've got a decent outside core with Tobias Brand and Moritz Reichardt and Eric Rohrs between the three of them. I think they can get the job done. And then down the middle to Anton Bremer and the young Simon Torvi, I think that's really, really strong for Germany, and they have a chance to take down Slovenia. Even though they only got 3 wins of the VNL, I think this is a big opportunity for them, because Bulgaria, of course, is the other team in this pool. And now we all know Bulgaria. They're one of the talk of the towns with the Nikolov brothers. But Kriktok, sure, Kraga in the middle. But like, if we see Kriktok too much, then I'm really going to be questioning what Winiarski is doing for Poland. And then when you look at Bulgaria, we know who their guys are. We know it's going to be Moni and Alex, but just the supporting cast around them isn't that strong. Has Slovenia? Sorry, I'm answering Quantum in the chat saying let's see if Slovenia really uses Mujanovic as an OH. If they use Mujanovic as an outside hitter, that could be really interesting. I wonder if he's going to be able to actually pass the ball, but we're not entirely sure. For Bulgaria, I've always thought that Dimitar Dimitrov is the best opposite in the Bulgarian system, but he is not on this roster. They're going to be going with Vanislav Antov as the opposite. And in some of the pre-match, in some of the pre-tournament matchups, we saw that Alex was actually playing a little bit on the right side, right? And then going with a 3 outside hitter situation for Bulgaria. And at the same time, we've also seen that Blangini was taking off Moni and going with others. So I'm not entirely sure if Bulgaria is going to be able to take down Slovenia or Germany, but I think that all of the matches between those 3 teams are going to be very, very, very interesting. And the final team in this pool, Chile. I don't think Chile has much of a chance, but if you want a sneaky fantasy pick Vicente Paraguer Villabos from Chile. He's a guy that actually played up here in Canada. He played his university ball at the Université de Laval, and was an absolute bucket. Like, that's a guy who can go out and score 20 on any day. He carries the Chilean offense. He was one of the top scorers of the Pan Am Cup this year. He's consistently a top scorer for the Pan Am Cup. He's going to score you some points in fantasy throughout the group stage. So Vicente Paraguer is going to be your guy, but there's no doubt in my mind, like, Chile is going to have a tough time to win any games against any of these European teams in Pool E. Moving on to Pool F. Now, Pool F does have the defending world champions in Italy. Now, not only are they the defending world champions, but they also have arguably the winningest person at the World Championships of all time, right? Ferdinando Di Giorgi, or otherwise known as Fefe, is one of those players who's won 3 World Championships as an athlete, but also has that 2022 World Championship as a coach as well. And while this Italian team has a very, very deep roster, they did suffer a huge blow when Daniele Lavia broke his hand and had to go into surgery. Lavia was huge for them when they won the World Championships back in 2022. He was huge for them when they won the Euros back in 2021. He's been massive for them for quite a while, and that will be a huge blow for this Italian team, just in terms of depth. But we'll either see Mattia Bottolo or Luca Porro in that P2 spot. I think this is a big opportunity for Mattia Bottolo. He had a fantastic Superliga season this year with Lube, and we were talking about it on the show that like it should be time for Bottolo to get that shot. We never really saw it, so now's his shot. And Luca Porro, I think, just brings a little bit of steadiness, right? He doesn't have the physicality that a guy like Lavia or Bottolo or even Francesco Stani is, who's going to be the 4th guy on the outside of the roster, but he's got a lot of ball control. He's a smart player, and so smart, in fact, that Berkay even added him in as, one of his most influential U23 players. And I actually don't disagree with him. I think that Luca Porro is going to play a really, really important role for this team. Now, in Italy's case, to be able to defend their gold medal, they're going to have to rely on their 2 best players, and that is Simone Gianelli and, of course, the unicorn, Alessandro Micheletto. And Micheletto is a player that is pretty much unstoppable, and when he wants to be the best player in the world, he can be. And especially with Gianelli setting him. Like this is a team that knows each other so much, so well, and they have been, getting better and better. The big question, I guess, for everyone is going to be who's going to start on the right side. Do you go with Romano or do you go with Rychlicki, right? Do you go with the guy who's helped you win tournaments and events before in Romano, or do you go with the guy who maybe is a little bit better on the club side and maybe has done some things there? Personally, I think that Rychlicki has a lower floor, but Romano has a higher ceiling. And if this tournament goes on, we're going to see more and more Yuri Romano in this situation. But when you're looking past Italy in this pool, I do think that's a bit of a toss-up for second place between Ukraine and Belgium. Now, Ukraine did have a great VNL this year. Even without Oleg Plotnitsky, they were able to come out and surprise everyone with a 10th place finish. Dmytro Yanchuk was one of the breakout players of the VNL. He finished 5th in both attacking and in scoring, and 3rd in aces. Captain Captain Yuri Semeniuk is one of the best blockers in the world and was the best blocker in the VNL. And then you have Alexander Boyko, who is one of the, low-key, one of the best receivers that we see at the VNL. He was second or the 3rd best receiver at the VNL and was 2nd in digs. And then when you look at guys like Vasil Tupci as well, who can pop off and be a game changer, game in, game out, this Ukrainian team can be really good. And if you don't show up against them, you can get beat. However, I think that one of the dark horses in this tournament, and dark horses in general in volleyball, is this up-and-coming Belgian team. Now, Belgium has always been a one-man show in Sam Deroux. And of course, Deroux will be back. He's been playing in Russia for a little bit, getting whatever that treatment that Marlon Yant is out there. But this Belgium team, I think, is going to be really good. You have Sam Deroux on the left side. You have Ferry Riegers, who has been one of the top scorers for Milano in the Superlega for a number of years. But then you also have low-key someone who's really, really good in Sepe Roti also on the left side. So when you look at how strong they are at all three of their outside positions. You have a veteran setter in Stinde Hulst who's going to be able to run that offense. You've got a strong guy like Woutahir who's played in the Superliga down the middle. I think that Belgium could be a low-key dark horse. If they can get past Ukraine and if they can beat Ukraine, they are going to be tough to beat in the round of 16. This is a team that you're going to have to show up against, and I'm really, really interested to watch Belgium play. There's no doubt I'm going to be able to watch them play. And then, of course, Algeria, thanks for being here. Have a cookie, okay? Moving forward to Pool G, and now Pool G is going to be the Discord battleground, okay? There is going to be the biggest fights in Pool G, and so much so that like two of Canada games are at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be waking up to watch those, just so I can talk shit to the Turks and to the Japanese fans in the Discord during this match. Now, we're going to satisfy the weebs first. We're going to start by talking about Japan, and I'm sure all of you Japanese fans who are kind of new to all this are going to be absolutely shocked when I tell you that I don't think Japan is going to do well in this tournament at all. And let me break this down for you. They are missing a lot of their guys, a lot of their main guys. And now most of you weebs are going to think that missing Yuji Nishida is going to be, the biggest blow for Japan in this pool, and I actually don't think so. Without Yuji Nishida, who's decided to take some time away, for his family, I honestly think that Kento Miura the ball is just a little bit better, and he was their top scorer in the VNL. So I don't think you lose much except for depth by not having Yuji Nishida there. However, there is three other players that are going to be missing from this roster that are going to be huge blows. First and foremost, not having Masahiro Sakita is a big blow, is a big blow for this Japanese team. I think that there's a huge drop off from Sakita to Motoki Airo, right? Airo is a decent setter, but he's not Sakita. He doesn't run the speed and the rhythm that we're so used to seeing this Japanese team play with. So that's going to be huge. But then also, maybe even more importantly, and I know some of the actual Japanese fans might agree with this, but missing two of your biggest and best middles in Kentaro Takahashi and Akihiro Yamauchi, that's big blows. Those are two guys who know how to play at this international level, and they're going to be leaving Onodera out to dry out there down the middle for Japan. So I really think that this Japanese team is going to be struggling, especially without Sakita and their middles. Now, they have pretty much everyone they want on the left side: Ishikawa, Takahashi, Otsuka, Kai. But still, with Japan is a team that really works well together as a team, and it requires everyone to be able to do their role. And without some of their guys, I think there's going to be a struggle, right? I think that there's a reason that Blue Tion, did they lost early in the playoffs this year? And I don't think Airo is all that good. As Luke says, Airo can make most players look like bums, and he's just not the same. He's not giving he's just not giving his Japanese teammates the same looks as Sakita, and there's going to be a big difference. I think the way, obviously, it's my Canadians, and now much like the Americans, we're going to be missing a lot of our main guys from the Paris 2024 Olympics. Still no Stephen Marr, still no Eric Lepke, still no Arthur Schwartz, although he was training with the team, and I think that he just wasn't quite in shape compared to the other guys. Still no Denny Demonenko, who's going to be taking the summer off. However, there is the big news of the return of the one and only Mr. Shawan Vernon Evans. And man, I'm just stoked to see him in a Canadian jersey again. I really am. I've watched him grow up over the years, playing for Pac-Man and playing for the national team and everything that he's done. So I absolutely love the fact that he is rejoining this team. And I did say a little bit earlier this year or last year that I did think it was a possibility. For two reasons. One, his boy, Daningima Kofi, back on the team. Two, back in the day, back in the day, and I talked about this a little bit on the Discord, I think it was yesterday, that, when Shawan came in from when Shawan was graduating out of club, there was a lot of talk of where he should go, and he went directly to the FTC. I think this was 2016, 2016 it would have been. And just after Canada went to the Olympics and everything. And a lot of people questioned that. And I know for the first half of his time at the FTC, it wasn't Dan Lewis at the time. It was Vincent Pichette. It was really hard on Shawan. And there was a lot of rumors back in the day that he was going to leave and he was going to go play for Ryerson. His sister was there, and he knew Matt Harris, who was coaching at the time, or Matt Harris and Nico, who were Pac-Man coaches at the time. And he decided to stay at the FTC mostly because, from my understanding, of Dan Lewis. So with Dan Lewis once again at the helm of this team, that's kind of what told me, with Dan back, with Kofi there, this could be an opening to see Shawan come back. And I absolutely love the fact that he's back on this team, because I think that Xander Kaczynski was fantastic this year in the VNL, and I thought we should have maybe started him even a little bit earlier. I know we needed to give our flowers to Sclater, but when you look at the mix of Shawan's length and Xander's pure power, ooh, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I know a lot of you idiots out there are going to be like, oh, Shawan's washed. This guy scored 800 points. 800 points in the SV League this past year. He has been a bona fide bucket, a bona fide top 5 scorer in the SV League now for 4 years, competing with some of the best players in the world. And then also playing for a Sakai Blazers team that really is, like, if you talk to anyone who's played, like Luciano Polanski was telling me, this just like, they spend money on foreigners and then do nothing else in terms of getting Japanese guys. So they kind of leave their foreigners out on a bit of an island. So Shawan is a guy who I think will be huge against Japan, right? He's played 4 years in Japan. He knows those guys. He knows how to play against them and with a lot of them. So Shawan is going to be a huge addition to this roster, and I absolutely love it. There has been one unfortunate update to the Canadian roster, as unfortunately our top scorer from the 2025 VNL, Brody Hofer, will not be participating in the World Championships. It seems like he's come down with a bit of a sickness, and I'm not entirely sure. He didn't tell me what it was, but what he told me is that, it's essentially looks like he's been losing a little bit weight. He's been quite sick, and he's just not the player that he expects himself to be. So Brody will not be on the roster for Team Canada. He's instead focusing his time to get better in rehab and get better for his season with Halkbank in the Turkish Efreli Ligi. I already messaged him to send him my best. I personally love the way Brody plays. I love the fire that he brings on the court. And there were so many times this summer that I thought he really, really sparked us. But ultimately, we're going to be looking for him to be better for the long term instead of needing him for right now. But in his place, we will see Captain Nick Hogue return just to bring a bit of a veteran presence, right? We're going to be a little bit skinny on the left side. Skylar Varga wasn't brought on as one of the athletes. So that's why I think we have 4 middles, with Jackson Howe joining the team now that Brody has been able to, has had to step away due to this illness. But on the left side, it's going to be, we've got Heslinga, Jackson Young, Nick Hogue, and Jesse Elser. So a little bit skinny out there on the left side, but with the firepower that Canada is going to be able to have on the right side and the strength down the middle with McCarthy and Kofi, obviously, and Georgia Snitzer, I'm very, very interested to see what this team can do. This is a really, really good opportunity for this team to grow and to be able to get some time. However, where things get even more interesting is Turkey in this pool. Now, if you go back to 2022, Turkey ended up beating Canada and finished our World Championships back then. There was a lot of shit talking in the Discord. But what have you done since then, Aberkai? What has Turkey done internationally since then? Squat shit. Nothing. But that being said, I actually do like this roster for Turkey. They've got a lot, like they've got so much quality. They have so much talent, but the question is can they put it together, right? You have Adis Lagomgia, who's known to be a high-level scorer. Efe Mandaracho was one of the breakout players in the Superliga this year with Piacenza, and I think that Mirza Lagomgia is going to sub in for as a really, really good P2. F.A. Byram unfortunately injured his ankle in training leading up to this event, so he will not be on the roster. And I think you've got guys like Yeni Pazar, who's a pretty underrated setter in my opinion, and strong play down the middle with Matic and Beteran. So the question is that can Kovac get this team on the same page to be able to win a game at the World Championships? It's not the same Canadian team as they had to play back in 2022. I think this team is a little bit older and a little bit better. And the matchups between Canada, Turkey, and Japan, I think, could be really, really interesting. I honestly think that this could be like a 3-win situation. Everyone's going to beat up in Libya. Libya's going to have some really good cookies, I'm sure. They're going to really enjoy the buffet at the event. They're going to go 3 up, 3 down, and that's it. That's all. I mean, I'll live stream the match tonight just to see how it goes. But I think Pool G is not only going to be a battleground on the court, but it's also going to be a battleground in the Discord. And to all my Turkish friends out there, I think that we're not going to be friends when we play each other, but just know that I always have respect for you. Okay? Okay. Now, rounding out this tournament in Pool H, if you want to talk about a spicy pool, Pool H is it. First and foremost, Brazil. Brazil is Brazil. Brazil is Brazil. They've medaled at the past 6 events. They've missed out on the semifinals only once since like 1982. Brazil is one of the best, if not the best, volleyball nation of all time. Now they're just coming off a bronze medal at the VNL, and a VNL where they led the intercontinental round as that #1 team, and they did that mostly without Lucarelli. And Brazil is actually one of the few teams right now that is right side dominant, especially with Allen and Darlin in the way they play. Brazil and their double sub actually reminds me a lot of the way Italy plays on the women's side with, Agonu and Antropova. The Souza brothers are the real deal. Allen a little bit taller, a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more powerful. Darlin is a little bit, more explosive and a little bit faster. So you have different options there. And then of course you've got some really, really strong play down the middle with guys for like, of course, Flavio might be one of the best blockers in the world up there with Augustin Lozer. Actually, I think they might be the 2 best blockers in the world. Otavio is really, really good. And then you have, I think, a pretty strong left side core too. Lucarelli, obviously going to be their #1 guy, but then you have guys like, Lucas Bergman and Artur Bento. And Bento should have been Canadian. If you want to look at that up, there's a whole chat about it in the Discord, but I don't want to lament it anymore. I do think that Brazil is a legitimate medal threat in this tournament. But I don't think for so long we've been waiting for the downfall of Brazil. And I mean, if you look at U21, they finished 18th. Canada beat them to finish the tournament, but this Brazil team is still Brazil. You're still being led by Bernardinho. You're still being led by one of the best, and I'm expecting them to make a really, really deep run. But after that, this pool is interesting. Now, Serbia is Serbia. You've got all these Serbia fans being, we don't care about Vienna. We don't care. But at the end of the day, I don't know if they have the quality to be able to compete, at this level and to be able to win at this level. They've got a pretty strong outside core with Kujundžić, Peretz, and Masilovic. Ivovic is surprisingly marked down as a libero. We'll see if that sticks. But at the end of the day, they just lack the ball control, I think, to be able to compete with the top teams. And then either Jovovic or Todorovic, I think it's a toss-up. I think they're both average at best. I think the pairing of like Luke Herr and Max Elgert is better than Todorovic and Jovovic, but maybe that's my Canadian bias coming through. I know that Drazen Lubric can be dominant at times, but I don't know. And mostly when I'm looking at the way the other two teams play, one, Czechia is going to be an interesting team to watch. Because they've got some really good opposites, right? Marek Sotola and of course Patrick Indra, who was one of the biggest breakout stars in the Plus Liga this year and led everything in scoring for a club that no one expected to, while having three different setters set him throughout the year, and was still dominant with all of them. I think he's going to be an absolute bucket. But also too, Lucas Vashina is low-key one of the best serve receivers for in the Plus Liga this year. So I think that Czechia low-key has a bit of a chance to get through. And then also China. Now, China did only win 3 games in the VNL this year, but man, did they do it in style. They made things difficult for almost everyone. And, you know, Vital Heinen, who has won a world championship before, he knows how to go the distance and knows how to win in this tournament, is really, really good. Where I think Heinen really excels is that he can help teams overachieve. And that's exactly what we're going to see. And Rob would be happy. No Jan Hadrava for the Czech Republic, or Czechia. Sorry, I apologize. He is not there. It is going to be Indra and Shotla on the right side for Czechia. But back to China. This Chinese team plays really, really well in system, and they can find so many different ways to score. You know, I think that their two guys on the right side in Zhang Xuan and Jia Wen are, you know, Xuan is a little bit smaller but hits the ball hard. Like, you can hear it when he hits the ball, and Wen a little bit longer, but he's pretty steady, are both really good. And then Yongzhen Li, if you're looking for guys who are going to get you block points in this tournament, I think he is low-key one of the best blockers. So there's no doubt that, in my mind, that China is the best 4th seed in this tournament. And I think with a little bit of luck, they can find themselves in the top 16, right? I think that their style of play could really potentially frustrate Serbia, and then we'll see what Czechia is going to be able to bring to the table. I know that a few other pieces have talent, but I want to see how all of it comes together at the end of the day for Czechia. Okay, so that's going to be my breakdown of all of the pools, and before we end this, we're also going to look at what the how this tournament is going to break down overall. Okay, so here once again, same as the women, we're going to have the format. We're going to hide the finals because we don't really need to see that part. And, you know, I think it's going to be interesting because there's going to be one bracket, and it's that yellowish bracket, the second one there, the D1 versus E2, that is going to be the most interesting because, you know, at the top, it's going to be the A's versus the H's. So we'll have probably Iran versus, I have Czechia as my number 2 team coming out from Pool H. So Iran versus Czechia, and then Tunisia versus Brazil in this round of 16 there. So I think it's going to be, I actually have Czechia beating Iran in the first round, and it's going to be Brazil versus Czechia. Brazil has a very, very, very easy path to the finals. There's no doubt about that. Brazil, if they don't make it to the semis or even to the finals, if Brazil doesn't make it to the finals, it would be a huge loss. They should be able to make it there pretty easily, especially because that second bracket, we're going to see something like Cuba versus Germany or Slovenia versus Cuba. It's USA. I think I'm going to give it to Cuba. Right? In my notes, in my book right now, I have Cuba going to the semis against Brazil, which is wild. I hope Ronnie isn't here to be able to be listening to this right now. But that's just the way that it's going to go. I think Cuba's going to win the pool. They'll probably have to play like Slovenia, who might finish second. And then the US will have to play Germany. And Maybe the U.S. can win a first round matchup. You know, Micah and Eric is going to be able to are going to be able to win them some games. But much like the women's tournament, the upper side of this bracket is devoid of some good teams, and it's because the US is in a complete rebuilding stage, right? They're building towards 2028. They don't need their guys. They're going to see what guys can work here, and they're not going for the win. Okay, now on the bottom side, this is where things get real interesting, because you have Poland, you have France, and you have Italy. Not to mention you have dark horses like Argentina in there as well with DeCecco. So, I mean, if everything goes to plan, it would be Poland versus Canada and maybe Japan versus Romania. If Romania is going to be able to get past the Dutch, that's a big question mark there. That's what I have in my notes here, but maybe it's just a little bit wishful thinking. But I kind of low key think that Canada can beat Japan, and I think that we're going to win the pool. But don't tell anyone I said that, okay? Regardless, we could have a Poland versus Japan in either the round of 16 or the quarterfinals, which we all know is a volleyball world wet dream. Maybe that's why they set that up, just to have two of the biggest audiences in the volleyball world going at each other. And I think it should be fun. I think Canada, if we're able to make it out the pool, I'm not going to say it's a big if. I have confidence that we can beat Turkey, and I think that we can also beat Japan too, considering they have Iro setting and they're going to be missing their middles. Like, we're going to be able to beat them down the middle. Still, we're at like anyone who has to play Poland in either the round of 16 or the quarterfinals is in really, really tough. And I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say that Poland's going to be able to make the quarterfinals here. And then finally, that bottom bracket, is going to get spicy. As I said, I think France is going to win Pool C, and I think that France is going to win Pool C with Argentina coming second, and Italy is going to win Pool F with Belgium coming second. I mean, France versus Belgium in the round of 16. I think that matchup could be pretty good, obviously, with France winning, and then Italy, Argentina in the round of 16. Maybe if some DeCecco magic happens, like we've seen Italy slip up before and die. But ultimately, I think we're going to have France and Italy in the quarterfinals, which may be a little bit too early. The defending Olympic champs against the defending world champs in the quarterfinals. But that's just how it's going to be. And I'm actually picking France to move on. I think without Lavia, Italy is going to be missing a little bit of firepower, and I don't think that this is a tournament that France is going to be taking lightly. I don't think they're going to be partying like they normally do. I think that this is a team that is absolutely ready to go and wants to go out there and win it. So my call for the semifinals are as follows: Brazil versus Cuba and Poland versus France. Obviously, I'd pick Brazil. Actually, no. Cuba plays Brazil really tough. I think that both of those semifinals would be super duper spicy, any way you look at it. And I think they're going to be a lot of fun. But I do think that whoever wins that bottom bracket game between Poland or France or potentially Italy is going to go on to be the tournament winner, much as we saw on the women's side. If you're a little bit more battle tested, you're a little bit more ready, and you're going to be a little bit more motivated, I think, to be able to go win the championship. So, yeah, that is my breakdown of the 2025 men's volleyball world championships. I apologize for all the technical mishaps, but that's just the way it goes. Anna, I know you're laughing, but you can't disagree that Cuba looks better than the US right now. They just really do. That is the reality of it. Okay. I won't be camping during this one. I'll be here throughout all of it. And now that my fucking internet hopefully is better and that there's no more water dripping in my walls or dripping down from the ceiling, like, I'll actually post it in the Discord. There's a wall where you can just see all the stains because there's like dirty water that's been dripping through from our old, our old water heater. But I will be doing a watch along tonight for the US versus Colombia game and Canada versus Libya game. I know they're going to be quick ones. Might make a few cocktails during that one. Might teach you how to make some cocktails. And yeah, I'm super stoked to get this going. I'm really excited for Canada to be playing Japan and Turkey later on too. And if you haven't, please join the Discord. It is the best volleyball community in the world. Thank you all for sticking with me. If you're watching this later, just know how frustrating it was to get this shit on the road. I know it's been a little choppy, but I'm not using Streamlabs anymore. Fuck it. We're just going to go with typical regular OBS. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I'll see you later tonight for the watch along, and let's go. It's World Championships time, baby. Have a good one. See you soon. Peace.